In 4 years, you don't have to vote again. We'll have it fixed so good you're not going to have to vote.
Christian nationalism is an existential threat to a government of the people, for the people, and by the people.
So this was created for Trump by people associated with Trump. Trump, now realizing how unpopular it is, he keeps trying to distance himself from it, saying he has no idea who these people are who wrote this thing. Unfortunately for him, here he is on a private plane with the guy who's in charge of it. Former Trump administration official teasing the fact that he is currently writing the super secret transition playbook that Trump will use if he's reelected in November. This guy planning the transition. You will notice the headline offers a helpful reminder that this isn't the first playbook he's written. The guy planning the Trump transition is a, quote, Project 2025 architect. 6 of Trump's cabinet officials collaborated on the drafting of the Project 2025 playbook. Another 140 Trump administration staffers had a hand in working on it in some capacity. All of that put together makes it a hard sell for the Trump campaign to claim that they had no idea who these people are who wrote up this thing. And for the Trump campaign trying to make that case, these new videos are not going to help them make that case.
Hello, my name is Jeff Small. I was a presidential appointee in the Trump administration.
My name is Caroline Levitt, and I am a former political appointee in the Donald J. Trump administration.
I served in the Trump administration.
Pam, you started on day 1 of the Trump administration, and you stayed until the final hour.
Yeah, shocking that I made it.
Of the 36 different people who appear in these videos that are obtained by ProPublica, 29 of the 36 of them are people who directly worked for the Trump administration or the Trump campaign. Even people who voted for Trump in 2020, they, by clear majority, say they do not support the policies in Project 2025. You're either going to need to turn this campaign around to make people like you more, or you're going to need to figure out a way to win in a different way. And I have been talking here on MSNBC with some urgency about this since around the time of the RNC, because of what I'm seeing as what clearly appears to be an emerging strategy for Republicans this year, which is to mess with the count of the vote, to have local Republican officials deny certification of the vote county by county. Well, this time around, they are professionalizing the effort to block the certification of the vote. They're systematizing it. They're starting with trained Republican officials at the local level in states all across the country, so they can make a bigger swing at it this time. There's an urgent new report on the subject. It's from CREW, Citizens for Responsibility and Ethics in Washington. It's called Election Certification Under Threat, a legal roadmap to protect the 2024 election, including from 35 officials who have refused to certify results. The report tracks this sort of burgeoning crisis across 8 different states so far, where, in fact, there have been dozens of Republican local officials who have been refusing to sign off on proper tallies of lawful votes. Is this a Republican strategy that holds any promise of essentially hamstringing the electoral count? Do they have any real prospects of messing up the vote in November using these tactics that they have been essentially test driving in states all across the country in lower profile elections? Joining us now is Noah Bookbinder. He's president and CEO of CREW, Citizens for Responsibility and Ethics in Washington. Mr. Bookbinder, thanks very much for joining us. Thanks for the advanced look at your report. I found it really interesting.
Thanks so much for having me.
So I have been talking about this sort of with increasing concern for the last few weeks, because it looks to me like Republicans at the county level and now starting to be at the state level are test driving an effort that they're going to try in November to effectively prevent the election from being made official, to prevent the vote tallying to go forward in any sort of normal way. Do you think that is what they're trying to do?
I think it is absolutely a thing that is going to happen. I think that we've seen these county officials in multiple states attempt to stop the certification of votes in elections of, in many cases, very little consequence. And they were doing it essentially as a run-through for an election of a great deal of consequences, which is the one this fall.
We are seeing a real threat to everything we believe in. The whole principle of the Constitution is one person, one vote. Everybody's vote counts the same. But what you are seeing in this country right now is an effort to say we only want to count the votes of people who agree with us.
For more on who's backing Trump's efforts, we look at a secret organization of wealthy Christians who are working to purge more than 1 million voters from the rolls in battleground states and mobilize Republican voters to back Trump. It's called Ziklag.
Voter irregularities are rampant across all 50 states, but especially pronounced in the battleground states. Public polling confirms Americans have lost confidence in electoral integrity. With the federal election already in full swing, more must be done to ensure fair elections in the most important republic in the world. That's the purpose behind Operation Checkmate and its practical approaches to both get out the vote and clean electoral rolls through our coalition partners. Through these efforts, we have the opportunity to play a significant role in the upcoming election.
Ziklag is a secretive network of ultra-wealthy Christians, conservative Christians, who have this two-part goal, two-part vision for this country. One is to get heavily involved in the 2024 elections in the ways that you just described, mobilizing pastors, knocking people off the voting rolls, demonizing trans people to motivate conservative voters, but then looking toward the 20 and 30-year horizon. Ziklag's goal is nothing less than moving the country toward a state of Christian nationalism. So this really is, as one expert we quoted in the story told us, a vision for Christian supremacy.
Talk about more in depth these three programs: Checkmate, Steeplechase, and Watchtower.
Yeah, you see an almost sort of wraparound 360-degree approach to influencing the 2024 election in these three groups. So with Steeplechase, you have mobilizing conservative pastors out in America, out in the field, to mobilize their congregations to get them out to vote. And there's some concern that maybe there's fatigue about Donald Trump in 2024, that maybe conservative Christians won't turn out in the numbers they did in 2016. That's what this program is there for, getting the church as involved as possible. You have this anti-trans operation. They believe that going after trans people, demonizing transgender Americans, transgender healthcare, can, quote unquote, deliver swing states. But then this final one, I think, is honestly perhaps the most interesting, this Operation Checkmate, putting money into mobilizing conservative voters in key counties, not just states, but the counties. So Maricopa County in Arizona, Fulton County in Georgia, the other battleground counties in the country. And then trying to put money into knocking more than 1 million voters off the voting rolls in these states. And you see this in a couple of ways, but what's so interesting is how the Christian right, Christian nationalism is fusing here with the election integrity, or really the election denial movement that grew out of the 2020 election. We didn't have a lot of evidence of that before this reporting on Ziklag, but you see this bridge again between the Christian right and the election deniers in a really big way going into this election.
And how effective can they be in knocking voters off the rolls?
A little bit of money goes a long way when you are trying to get people knocked off the eligibility list for voters. That's what the experts, the political consultants, the folks that know these worlds told us in the reporting for this story. Because Ziklag is putting, say, $800,000 or $1 million into something called Eagle AI, an artificial intelligence software that makes it easier to challenge the eligibility of voters en masse. So you're not doing it one by one, you're doing it by the hundreds, by the thousands. You don't need tens of millions of dollars, the experts told us, to be able to make those challenges and to sort of turbocharge the effort to make voters ineligible.